tragic events that befell the Maguad family rocked the Philippines, uncovering a web of hidden struggles and unresolved tensions that culminated in an unthinkable tragedy. The Maguad family lived in Malang, Philippines, and were known for being kind, hardworking, and faithful. Cruz worked as a teacher, while Lovella worked as the principal of the local school. They had two children, 18-year-old Crizzle Gwynn, who was studying medicine, and 16-year-old Crizzle Louis, who dreamed of becoming a lawyer. The family led a modest and happy life. In July 2021, the family welcomed a new member by adopting a 17-year-old girl named Janice. Janice had a difficult past and came from poverty. Who was Janice Sebial? On September 22, 2013, an 8-year-old girl named Janice Sebial was found alone at a train station. She told the woman who discovered her that she had no memory of her past and didn't know where her parents were. The woman was shocked and quickly shared Janice's photo online in hopes of finding her family. Despite spreading the word on various forums, no one came forward to claim the child. Ultimately, Janice was taken to an orphanage. As Janice grew older, she worked as a domestic helper to make her ends meet. In 2020, Janice was hired by a couple with 2 young children to work as their nanny. The couple was connected to the Maguad family, and during a family gathering, Janice met Gwen for the first time. The two quickly formed a strong bond and became close friends. Janice, Gwen, and Louis often spent time together, posting dance videos on TikTok and chatting for hours without ever getting tired of each other's company. One day, Gwen and Louis noticed that Janice wasn't attending school like most kids her age. Curious, they asked her why she was working as a nanny instead of studying. With a heavy heart, Janice explained that she was an orphan with no family to support her. She had to work long hours just to survive, doing chores like cooking, cleaning, and washing. She had never had the chance to go to school, and her future felt uncertain. She didn't know what would come next or where her life was headed. Gwen was deeply moved by Janice's story and she felt sorry for her. As they talked more, an idea began to form in Gwen's mind. She shared her thoughts with Louis, and together they approached their parents about the possibility of adopting Janice. At first, their parents were hesitant. Their home was small, and with the parents being teachers, their salaries were barely enough for their own family. However, Gwen and Louis didn't give up. Gwen suggested she could take on a part-time job to help with expenses, and Louis even offered to give up his bedroom and sleep on the couch to make space for Janice. After much consideration, the Maguads were moved by their children's determination and love for Janice. They felt it might be the right thing to do, believing it could be God's plan for their family. Reluctantly but with hope, they agreed to it. In July 2021, the Maguads made Janice a permanent part of their family by officially adopting her. They enrolled her in the same school where they taught, and Janice proudly took on their family name, becoming Janice Maguad. For a while, it seemed like the Maguads' life was settling into a peaceful rhythm. But everything changed one day when $200, which had been stored in a locked cash box in the Maguads' bedroom, mysteriously disappeared. At first, Janice suggested a thief might have reached in through the window to steal the money, but something about her explanation didn't sit right. There were no signs of a break-in, and the only thing missing was the money. It didn't make sense to everyone in the house. One day when Gwen, while helping Janice pack her bag, discovered a hidden compartment in her backpack. Inside was the exact amount of money that had been taken from the box. Gwen confronted Janice and she broke down crying and confessed. She explained that she didn't really understand why she had taken the money, but she said it might be because of the constant struggle and fear of not having enough which led her to steal the money. Janice was overwhelmed with guilt and apologized, tears streaming down her face. Although deeply hurt, the Maguads understood that her past had left emotional scars. Gwen and Louis stood by her and defended Janice in front of their parents, offering reassurance. They made it clear that they would work through this together, and that they wouldn't give up on helping Janice heal from her past fears. The Maguad family, now a close-knit unit of 5, spent their weekends together and attending church. They had fully embraced Janice as one of their own, taking extra care to ensure she never felt like an outsider. For Janice, life had taken a turn for the better. She no longer had to fear losing her job or being left on the streets. With the Maguads, she found stability, education, a home, and, most importantly, the security of family. But despite all the love and care, something inside Janice still felt incomplete. On December 10, 2021, everything seemed perfect. That morning, Cruz and Lovella made breakfast for their children before heading off to work. That day, Janice took a significant step, calling them Mom and Dad for the first time. But by 3 p.m., The joy that had filled the morning turned into a nightmare. Janice's Facebook page began to post disturbing updates. She claimed that someone was breaking into the house and that she was hiding under Louis's old bed, which was now hers. Janice urgently begged for someone to call the police. Cruz received a phone call informing him that robbers had ransacked his house. Cruz rushed home in panic, his mind racing with fear and confusion. He had no idea what awaited him when he entered the house. The tragic reality that would greet him was far beyond anything he could have imagined. Cruz arrived home around 3:15 p.m., his heart racing with worry. The house was strangely silent, and as he approached the front door, he saw a blood-stained blanket and a knife on the ground. His fear grew as he called out for his children, but there was no answer. He tried the door, but it was locked. Cruz went to the back of the house, calling for Lou, Gwen, and Janice, but there was no response. Desperate, he entered through the kitchen door. Inside, he found the living room in disarray. His children lay lifeless on the floor, and there were signs of a violent struggle. A hammer and baseball bat scattered nearby, along with broken glass. Gwen's body showed several bruises and stab wounds. Louis was found near the front door, tied up and gagged in a pool of blood. Cruz, in utter disbelief, cried out in despair as he held his children, struggling to come to terms with the unimaginable loss. Janice appeared moments later, drenched in water. Cruz rushed to her, checking for any signs of injury, but he quickly noticed she was completely unharmed. She explained that she had been taking a bath, so she did not hear him calling out for her. She then told him how 3 men had entered the house and attacked Gwen and Louis. She ran to her room immediately and locked herself in her room and hid under the bed. Janice explained that she took a shower after the attackers had left to calm herself down. Cruz immediately called Lovella to share the tragic news. Lovella screamed in agony and blamed herself for not being there to protect her children. According to the autopsy, Louis sustained 51 cuts and Gwen was stabbed 21 times. They had been battered with a baseball bat and hammer and strangled. Whoever the murderer was, it was obvious that they had poured their anger and hatred on the 2 siblings living there. Gwen's cell phone was the only item taken. This pointed to the possibility that the murders were driven by personal motives rather than a robbery. Gwen and Louis were laid to rest on December 20, 2021. Their tragic deaths weighed heavily on the Maguad family, but the investigation was far from over. The police continued to examine the crime scene, and one thing that stood out was no valuables were taken from the house. The weapons used in the killings, a hammer and a baseball bat, were both everyday household items. The hammer, which belonged to Cruz, had been kept in a spot only known to Janice and Gwen. The baseball bat was Louis's and was kept in his room, which had now become Janice's bedroom. For the attacker to have used the bat, they must have entered Janice's room, despite her claims of locking herself in her bedroom. As Mr. and Mrs. Maguad reflected on Janice's account of the events, they began to notice several inconsistencies. Why would Janice be left unharmed while Gwen and Louis were savagely attacked? When Cruz arrived home at 3:15 p.m., only 15 minutes after Janice's Facebook post, the bodies of Gwen and Louis were already stiff, and ants had begun to gather around them. The autopsy confirmed that they had been killed around 2 p.m. So why did Janice wait so long before asking for help? Instead, she posted a message on Facebook. Why didn't she call the police immediately? And after witnessing the incident, how could she take a shower? Further investigation revealed that Janice had changed her Facebook name from Janice Maguad to JP shortly before posting for help. She claimed she had locked herself in her room, but the scene contradicted her story. The room was in chaos with bloodstains on the floor, and if the door had been locked, how did the attackers enter the room to take the bat? Investigators made a breakthrough in the case when they found an ID card belonging to a 17-year-old boy named Canedo in Janice's bedroom. While the Maguads didn't recognize him, a local resident identified Canedo as a young man who worked at a nearby church. Police later found a plastic bag caught in a branch near a stream not far from the house. It seemed the killers had tried to dispose of it, hoping the bag would be swept away by the water. However, it got stuck on the branch. Inside the bag were clothes soaked in blood, later determined to belong to Janice. Investigators found Janice's fingerprints on the baseball bat. After several hours of questioning, eventually, Janice broke down and confessed. She admitted to being behind the murders of Gwen and Louis, the siblings who had welcomed her into their family. But Janice didn't act alone. She revealed that Canedo, the 17-year-old church worker with whom she had developed a relationship, was her accomplice. Janice had manipulated Canedo to assist her in carrying out the plan. Her Facebook conversations with Canedo painted a clear picture that they had been plotting the murders for 10 days. In the messages, Janice spoke of her hatred for Gwynn and her deep feelings of jealousy. She confessed that she believed the Magwads favored Gwynn over her, which led to her decision to take matters into her own hands. With Canedo's help, Janice carried out the horrific act that ended the lives of the two siblings. Janice's motives behind the murders remained unclear, especially when it came to why she killed Louis as well. Some speculated that Janice was determined to eliminate all the Magwad children, hoping to become the only focus of her adoptive parents' love and attention. On the afternoon of October 10th, Janice secretly unlocked the door for Canedo to enter the house. After he attacked Gwynn, she tried to escape but returned back to protect her brother and Janice, unaware that Janice was the real monster. Janice confessed that she killed Gwynn herself. While she was being stabbed, Gwynn told herself that this was only a dream and that she still planned to become a doctor. She couldn't understand what she had done to deserve this, and she finally told Janice that she loved her. After the brutal killings of both Gwynn and Louis, Janice and Canedo showered, changed into fresh clothes and disposed of the blood-stained clothes in a plastic bag, which they tossed into a stream nearby. Janice then posted a desperate plea for help on Facebook, pretending to be a victim herself. The investigation was closed in just 6 days. Upon arresting Canedo, authorities discovered that he had Gwen's mobile phone. Janice and Canedo were quickly taken into custody, and they both were placed in juvenile detention. Janice was fascinated by horror films, especially one about an adopted child who turned out to be a killer. It's believed this film may have influenced her actions. But the most chilling revelation came later. Janice was never truly an orphan. Throughout her time with the Magwad family, she had been secretly in contact with her biological parents. Janice's mother, Janice Sebial, and father, Juanito Sebial, had been separated for years, and Janice had 3 other siblings. On December 29, 2021, Michelle and one of her daughters visited the Magwads. Michelle knelt down and apologized. Cruz and Lovella, showing compassion, embraced her warmly. They reassured her that they didn't blame her for Janice's actions. At first, Lovella had considered forgiving Janice because of her devout faith. Lovella believed Janice's actions stemmed from a troubled past and lack of love. But when she saw Janice in court, Lovella's perspective shifted. Janice's demeanor was cold, and her eyes showed no hint of remorse. It was unfathomable to Lovella that a girl who had been welcomed into their family with open arms could be capable of such brutality. They had given her a chance at a better life, only to have it destroyed by the very child they had embraced. In May 2022, Janice was sentenced to 31 years in prison and Canedo was sentenced to 29 years in prison. Despite their heartbreaking loss, the Magwads were grateful for the community's support. In August 2022, they opened a restaurant in memory of Gwen and Louis, serving their favorite dishes. Though their pain was immense, Cruz and Lovella found peace in knowing they had given their children a loving home. They held on to the memories of their children, finding solace in the love they had shared, even in the face of tragedy. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more true crime content. See you next time.